Welcome to this Sunday's Gospel Reflection. Well, I was born just after the Second World War, and I remember clearly the destruction, the poverty, and my heart hit birthplace. That was Bilgu. Life seemed simple and exciting growing up in a very crowded family, 10 children. We survived on little. My parents struggled to make ends meet and feed us all. The half destroyed and abandoned houses around us in the neighborhood were our favorite play and adventure areas. That's how I grew up. Jesus asked Philip, "Where can we buy enough food for them to eat?" That was exactly the question that my struggling parents used to ask themselves every single day. My dad would have readily made Philip's answer his own when he replied to Jesus, 200 days' wages worth of food would not be enough for each of them to have a little. There were too many hungry mouths to feed and too little money. Yet somehow the daily miracle happened. We survived. Not only survived, but we shared the little we had so that no one went to bed hungry, or almost. Just like in the gospel, Mom made sure to gather all the leftovers, not just the food, but everything else. We actually lived and survived on leftovers. You see, clothes were inherited from one child to another. They were retailored to fit a younger brother or a sister, or transformed from a skirt, it became a pair of pants by a very capable and talented seamstress, my mom, who used to work late at night when we were all in bed, and she would carry on working to prepare our clothes and school uniforms. My dad recovered and recycled driftwood from the harbor or timber from the houses ruined around us so that he could make the needed chairs, tables, furniture, as well as prestigious and ingenious toys for us kids. It was a world where reuse, recycle was a day to day way of life. It was our normal. The bare essentials were our luxuries. We grew up indeed poor in comforts, but rich in sharing, in solidarity, creativity, skillful resourcefulness. Today's gospel is indeed a wake up call in a world where the privileges of the few are paid for by the misery of the many. The richest 2% of adults in the world possess more than half the global wealth. The richest 1% of adults alone possess more than 40% of all the planet's assets. The world economy is driven by a culture of waste. Amazon destroys 130,000 unsold or returned items per week. Per week. Our economies, they are driven by wasteful consumerism. We no longer work to sustain our needs, but only to capriciously indulge in luxuries, in unnecessary spending. Shopping has become a pleasant hobby and entertainment. We need constantly to buy and throw away new clothes, shoes, so many perfectly useful and serviceable items. Our supermarkets are overflowing with items that are wrapped in different and attractively designed colors and packages to make us believe that we are buying something better or something different. It's no longer shopping. It is a craving addiction. And this is the way of the world. No wonder that the unfortunate masses are starving, whilst the privileged few are drowning in a sea of plenty. No wonder that the planet, as well as nature itself, are revolting against us. They are waging war on humanity, starting with climate change, including COVID, and other countless disastrous floods and fires that are destroying us. The source of our hope and peace is that, contrary to us poor, little, short sighted humanoids, God's ways, God's preferences are so different from ours. In Jesus' place, after such an impressive miracle of feeding large crowds with just a few loaves and some fish, we humans would have just relished in our big achievement and success and feel self-important, almighty. Jesus did something else. He forgot all about the big show of the multiplication of the loaves and just concentrated on the leftovers. As if he was telling the disciples that the leftovers were even more important than the impressive and the instant production of such an abundance of food. Don't forget, don't ignore the leftovers, he seemed to tell them. Because they are not leftovers. They are the source of yet a greater abundance. Jesus always had a very clear preference for the leftovers of society. The poor, the sick, the weak, the sinful ones. He had a weak point for the failures, for the failed. He had only disdain and great mistrust for the powerful, those who saw themselves as the successful ones. He always identified with the bottom and not with the top of the heap. One day, this preference did indeed take him to the top of the heap. Not the heap of the successful, but the heap of the failed ones, perched high up on a cross, along with two criminal scums. He accepted to be himself the discarded waste of society, condemned for elimination, because he wanted to reveal to us, poor and wasteful humanity, that our inner beauty is capable not just of recycling unpleasant waste, but of sprouting new life right from the very depths of what the world discards, throws away, and rejects. Only this can be the very source of real life, of our human destiny. And this is the greatest tragedy of our poor humanity. We speak a lot of disposing or recycling waste, yet we can never believe that what so many of us consider as just waste in reality is the only hope of us poor mortals. Love and life are never a glorious success story. Love and life are essentially tiny, humble seeds that can only grow and bear fruit through weakness, through smallness, through failure. Whatever is humble, hidden, sidelined is the source of our really real glory. That's why for us, as well as for the church, and indeed for humanity itself, greatness will never be found in impressive achievements or flashy, superficial solutions to the problems of life. True greatness can only be found in the small, insignificant, and humble actions. True greatness does not consist of achieving big, impressive successes, but true greatness consists of lovingly picking up the broken pieces, the exploited lives of the leftovers of society. It is not turning the world into an artificial paradise. It's not about changing the world into a paradise, no. It is about transforming it from within through our own smallness, our own poverty. Like Jesus. It is when we choose and embrace these leftovers that we can discover their real power. Because it is only the transforming power of love that can only be released in our faithfulness to the small, the humble actions of everyday life. This and only this will help us discover that just 5 loaves and a couple of fish can feed the world and even have leftovers.